I'm Jen.
I'm Carla.
I'm Myrna.
Hi, I'm Anjanette.
Welcome to the Latter-day Women's Warrior podcast again. We're so glad to have you with us today. If you haven't heard any of our other videos, please go back and look at them. We have a lot of great topics that we discuss. We'd love to have you comment and all those things to help us as we go along here. And we're just grateful to have you. Today, we are going to be talking about differences that people have with one another and what to do about them. How do we go about handling them? What's been said on the topic? And let's dive in here for a second. Dallin H. Oaks in 2014 gave a really great conference talk in October of that year. And I remember hearing this and thinking, of course, the lawyer guy is the one who would talk about things in a Dallin H. Oaks way. About conflict and about differences and what to do. And I liked his advice. And towards the end of his talk, this is what he said. In so many relationships and circumstances in life, we must live with differences. Where vital, our side of these differences should not be denied or abandoned, but as followers of Christ, we should live peacefully with others who do not share our values or accept the teachings upon which they are based. The Father's plan of salvation, which we know by prophetic revelation, places us in a mortal circumstance where we are to keep his commandments. That includes loving our neighbors of different cultures and beliefs as he has loved us. As a Book of Mormon prophet taught, we must press forward, having a love of God and of all men. So, as I was reviewing this talk, I don't know, guys. I first had this idea, okay, there's these conflicts and we can't abandon how we feel, but there are going to be complete differences with other people. And what do we really do about it? And he says we should live peacefully with others who do not share our values or accept the teachings upon which they are based. I totally agree with that. There's an acceptance that has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, so there's a difference because in the scriptures and all these things, we're always talking about contention. Contention is of the devil and don't be contentious. And I was like, well, what's the difference here? And I found a really simple difference. And it stated that conflict arises from differences in desires or opinions, but contention is caused by dealing with those differences in anger or frustration. So it's that sense of anger that comes up that I'm going to say sometimes when I'm having a discussion, a disagreement, an argument, my anger can come into place. And that is what I need to look at and work on because that is not Christ's teaching. But here, when you have those differences, is it hard not to go for either of you? Do you find that you jump into contention? Or are you able to keep that anger out of it most of the time in your lives? And then I'm going to ask a bigger question about like society and stuff. But for you guys, is it somewhere that you go? Because I'll let you know, for me, I can go from 0 to 60 like that, and anger and contention comes out of me. And I don't like it about myself, but it can happen.
Yeah, it does for me too. It was something that I started working on, and I don't know if I've made a whole lot of progress, but I remember my daughter and I are so alike. We we kind of fight a lot. I'm just going to say it. Yeah. Well, I did with my mom too. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But I remember reading, I don't know why I was reading the Articles of Faith. And I think it's 11 or something like that, where it talks about all the qualities that we should have.
Mm-hmm.
And one is temperate. And I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? So then I looked it up and I was like, oh, Myrna, you got a lot of work to do.
As I think that article of faith does to everyone, by the way. Everyone reads the list and goes, oh, man, I'm in trouble.
But temperate is that you are to be like, your emotions should be on the same keel instead of jumping from, anger all the way down to depression so quickly and so easily, that you need to be more of on a straight line, so to speak. I mean, there's times you're going to be changed a little different, but not so quickly. And so I started working on that, and goodness gracious, that is freaking hard. And so for me, it is something that I am aware of, that I have a problem with. I try really hard not to do it. You all have seen me do it. And then I've always felt bad afterwards. And usually apologize. I think I've probably forgotten to apologize to some people. So I'm really sorry, whoever out there I've done it to, and I forgot to apologize to you because I really do feel bad. But I have gotten better. I will admit I have gotten better. I'm not as quick to anger as I used to be. But for me, it's not easy for me.
And Jeanette, what about you? You don't look like a hothead or a quick or tempered person or anything.
But I do.
Well, look at
Hey, Myrna, I'm your friend, right? Can you take truth and honesty? It's the spiky hair sometimes. Spiky hair. And I'm going to...
Yeah. I'm kidding.
Well, to answer your question, I think in most situations I'm pretty even-headed, level-headed. But I will say, if you get me in a situation, and you guys have seen this, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Like if I get pushed enough in a certain direction, yeah, I fire off. And I have learned from experience, if I get to the point where I'm that upset about something, I really do need to go and disengage, because I need to go take a breather real quick and just to calm down. Because if I don't, then I will say something I regret. I've done it before. I am capable of doing it. And I think for me, just knowing enough about myself when I know I do need to take a break. I need to go move my body. I need to go hit something for a second. I need to go outside. I need to go walk. I need to go to process my feelings. I find that if I take those timeouts in the rare occasions when I need them, then there's not as much conflict that blows up in my face or in the face of other people. But I am capable of it. It does take me a little bit to get pushed to that point, but I am definitely capable of it.
Okay. So we've all admitted that there are maybe certain topics or certain situations that can bring that out. So in what Elder Oaks has said, and what I think the whole gospel of Jesus Christ says, we shouldn't have contention, that sense of anger, and which is probably rooted in pride, like, I'm right here, I have the answer, I'm this. At least I'll say, stick to my statements. That's what happens to me. It's a pride issue, and I can say and admit it, but only right here in the moment. I will not admit it.
You don't have to use your I statements because it happens to everybody.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Okay, I'm not putting words in your mouth, Myrna.
It just happens. I'm just saying. It happens.
Okay, so how can we go about making sure that when we have disagreements in lots of areas of life with lots of other people, and I'll admit, for me in California, I'm less likely to come in constant contact with people who are members of the church. I'm in contact with, on a daily basis, people who have nothing to do with my values, nothing to do with any of that, not even religious. And if so, I'm like, wow, maybe we can have some common ground here. But if somebody tells me that the Jesus I believe in isn't, it's not
It really isn't the real Jesus.
I'm just like, okay, can we talk a few points here? And I give this example because I feel like I want to talk a few points, and yet the person these days with society just wants to do a personal attack and say that I'm stupid and that I'm not really religious, and they don't even want to talk the point. And I think that's where I end up with some contention, is because they don't actually want to talk the point. And here's the couple of words I said I was going to put into this conversation: civility and decorum. Civility is simply formal politeness and courtesy and behavior and speech, and decorum is behavior in keeping with good taste and propriety. I feel like society has just taken those words and thrown them away and just toss them to the side and say, we don't need any decorum. We don't need any behavior of appropriateness. We just need to argue and be contentious on these points. And it doesn't go anywhere. And I'm sick and tired of it.
Well, I think also two other words that we don't really have the correct definitions anymore. And that's discussion and argument.
Okay.
People think a discussion is just talking things out. Actually, it's the opposite way. A discussion is when you're trying to change someone's mind. An argument is when you're just sharing your opinions. Okay?
Oh, everybody looking them up right now.
Everybody uses them in the wrong way. And we need to just, I just think that we just need to realize that it's okay to share your opinion. And if your opinion is not my opinion, then I have shared my opinion, and you can take what you want from it, and I'll take what I want from what you say. But we're all children of God, and it's all good. I don't have to convince you of my belief system.
You're just trying to have a discussion to state your ideas. Is that correct?
It's an argument.
So, an argument. So here we go. A discussion, the action or process of talking about something in order to reach a decision or to exchange ideas. According to a dictionary, the Oxford Language Dictionary, a conversation or debate about a certain topic.
Okay, they've changed the definition because I read it like 4 years ago because of everything that was going on, and it was the other way around. Right. So they have changed it. So I'm wrong now, and I'll admit that. But and we still don't know what the two words mean.
An argument is an exchange of diverging or opposite views, typically a heated or angry one. So argument now has the context of contention in it.
Yeah, it has. Whether it used to mean that or not, that is what it has become to me.
A reason or set of reasons.
They've changed it, yeah.
And it's also a reason or set of reasons given with the aim of persuading others that an action or idea is right or wrong. So you have an argument and it has already a negative connotation. But when you're writing and stuff, like lawyers, they use the word, I'm making an argument. I am persuading someone. I am trying to outline, and that's why I love that this was Elder Oaks. You're trying to outline your ideas and points of doctrine or refutes to what someone has to say. And I feel like nobody cares. They're just entrenched in their position. It doesn't matter anything else. They're just going to hold it, which is fine. You should. I want to hold my values. I want to hold to my beliefs. You hold to yours. but I feel like we could sit at a table and just discuss the point. I had been watching something recently, and okay, maybe not recently. Recently is like maybe a year ago at this point. But I watched people sit down who were of different faiths. It was a Protestant and a Catholic, and they actually went through and talked about their views on topics. And it was a civil conversation. And they were like, oh, is that how you believe it? Okay, well, we would say this. And they just went back and forth. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know about the Catholic view. I didn't know that about the Protestant view. And I sat there and was like, man, I wish we could just have more of this in every area.
Well, I think the difference comes when you are having these discussions, as now they're called, these discussions, and it comes to a point where you turn around and you say, oh, you're just an idiot. You're so stupid. You're so dumb. That is where it changes, because the world has now come to, if you can't get them to believe what you want them to believe, then you just resort to degrading them verbally.
Right. And for us, our religion teaches that instead you should, according to Jesus, have a loving kindness. We're supposed to love our enemies even. So we're supposed to be able to not go there with that in how I read it. And if I'm reading it wrong, guys, like, tell me in a very civil and decorous way, with decorum. And it seems like Jesus's teaching is just be kind and loving and accept that that's their belief and that's their way of seeing it, and say, mine is different and this is the value I hold to. And let it stay there. But people don't want to let it stay there. They want to go on social media and blast out all over the place. And half the time it's a lie.
Well, here's been my experience. This is experience with myself and experience with other people. This is stuff that I've learned in 12-step work. It depends on your intention going into the discussion and or argument.
Okay.
If your agenda going into any discussion or any conversation or anything that turns into an argument is to control the outcome of what the other person chooses to believe, it's going to become an argument. And it's eventually going to turn into a space where it's like, okay, that person's an idiot because they just can't see what they can't see and I'm right. If your intention going into any situation is to try and control what the other person is doing, thinking, saying, feeling, it's never going to end well. If you can go into a conversation or a discussion with the intention of, I can't control what that other person thinks or feels, and they can't control that with me. Right. So maybe let's just have some talking points and see if we can change each other's mind. But if that doesn't happen, it's okay. I respect that person's beliefs. They respect mine. We can choose to disagree. And we can walk away understanding each other a little bit better, even if we don't agree on something. If you're trying to control the outcome, then it's not going to end well.
Right.
And that's where the contention comes from. It's because you're trying to control this person and you're trying to change their viewpoint and it's not happening.
And see, to me, I'm going to agree with you. I think that is where where it sits, right? That when you have that intention, I'm trying to change your idea. But if you're not, you also can't control that the other person thinks that's your intention. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to state my ideas and have a civil dialogue about this situation or whatever the problem to be worked out is. I just find it so interesting that you read all this great literature that we have in our society from, the 1800s and on. And yes, I know that's Victorian ideas and values. But so much of it was about that societal, civility was high on their list. You could have different ideas and you could be in a room and discuss your political views and you come away going, okay, so he's, believing A and I'm believing a different view. But I respect that. I respect your view. And I see how you might have come to that conclusion. I come to conclusions differently. How do we bring that back in society? How do we do that now?
I need to share two things.
Share.
One, I feel a little, what's the word? Nervous sharing with everybody that our religion teaches us to be kind of loving in discussions because we're not very good at doing it.
It's true.
Members of our church really have a hard time having discussions and not arguments. They really do. And that is something I personally feel our members of our church need to learn to do better.
Why do you say that?
I don't know why it is.
Well, no, like what's an
I
example?
just know that I've just seen it. I've just seen it all over the place, all over. You see it all over, especially on the internet, on YouTube, on TikTok, all over the place. They're always dissing other people. They're always dissing other religions. They're always talking bad about people. But yet we're supposed to have what we believe the truth of the gospel. Why do we treat people like that? Sometimes, I will be honest, sometimes I'm embarrassed to say I'm a member of the church. I'd rather just tell everybody I'm a Christian because members of our church are just ugly when it comes to some of those kind of things. And you can say whatever you want in your comments, but that is what I see. I really do see it all over the place.
Well,
and that needs to change.
We have to be careful in the internet space, all of us. And the reason is because in the internet space, when you have something to say, there's no accountability. If you're sitting in a room with somebody, across from somebody, you're seated next to each other, you're likely going to behave very, very differently than if you're just like posting something on some blog or some website or some TikTok video or Instagram video, because there's really no accountability for what you say or for what you do. You can just say what you want to say. You can use it as a way to emotionally vent. And some people might troll you back, but at the end of the day, there's really not a big consequence for most people when they're in that space. Now, that's not always true. When people have channels or a lot of influence and they say or do something, there's definitely consequences in today's cancel culture atmosphere. But that's part of the reason why be careful if you really want to have, in my personal opinion, if you really want to have a genuine discussion with somebody about somebody, don't do it over the internet. Do it one-on-one.
Yeah,
right.
Has anybody ever gone to Facebook and convinced somebody else of their different political views? Like, I said this thing and it changed their life. That's probably not going to happen. So if you want to have a real discussion, call them up on the phone, get together with them in person and say, like, hey, I want to ask you about this. Can we have a discussion about this? Well, go about it with the spirit of not trying to control the conversation.
Right. And once it's out there, you can't take it back.
Yeah. You can take it down, but you can't.
Seriously, if someone will have copied it. You can take it down, but someone will have copied it.
Exactly.
And then when you have thrown a fit, there it is. It's always going to be there. Right. But I say that because that's what I have seen. And it sometimes it's embarrassing to tell people I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when they have seen or they've heard something on the internet or wherever they've heard it, because I don't know. That's what I have seen. Now, my second thing.
Absolutely.
Okay,
wait. Now I forgot my second thing. Go ahead. I'm saying, but I'll remember my second.
You remember it, because I'm going to go to a point to that Ann Jeanette brought up. This idea of cancel culture, I think, is an extension of this whole thing we're talking about. It's a way of hitting the red button and saying, well, we're different. Bam. You don't agree with what I have to say, and what I have to say is right. So I'm canceling you, and I'm going to tell everyone, and you're done. You're not going to...
You don't get to share your views anymore.
You don't get to share your views now. And the complete problem to me with cancel culture is, okay, so if everyone doesn't agree with your views and your ideas, they deserve to not exist. They deserve to not be heard. They deserve, like, how far are you taking that? Because we've had comedians recently who said jokes, some of them in the past and some of them current. And jokes, I think, is that space where you should be able, comedians in the past were just able to talk about anything. And now the comedian's like, cancel. Oh, cancel. You said something wrong. Cancel. It's a joke. You didn't find it funny? Okay. Well, you didn't find it funny. What? Is that really the reason? Oh, that was too political. Oh, that was too not woke. That was too. Yeah. So people get to have a red button at home and just make all those decisions for society because they believe that that's right. That is not the America and life I grew up in.
Well, that's the problem with trying to control the conversation, whether it's an online conversation or a real life one. The moment somebody disagrees with you and you're not getting the outcome that you're wanting, then you label them. And the danger of labeling them is, well, that person's a Democrat. That person's a Republican. That person's the LGBTQ community. That person's this. That the moment a person ceases to be a person in your mind with hopes and dreams and values that are just as real and important as yours, even if they're different, the moment they become an object, then you can treat them however you want because they're not a person, they're a thing. And you can treat things however you want to treat things. This is how Nazi Germany happened.
Yeah.
Right.
It's it starts very, very small, but one small step leads to the next small step. For the Germans and the Jews, it was like the Germans started seeing the Jews like, well, they're humans, but they're the inferior humans. They're not, they're the lesser. We're the superior race. They're the lesser. And then it takes the next step of like, well, they're not actually humans. They're animals.
Yeah.
Like, and then it comes to be like, well, we can do what we're trying to create in our good intentions, the superior human race. And so let's get rid of the inferior things.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how you justify genocide is you start objectifying people away from being people and children of God into being objects that can be used, controlled, manipulated, and used however you want.
Right.
And you think that isn't the slippery slope. You think,
oh, that's beyond the slippery slope.
You're just crazy and think you. But none of those things happened overnight. It was always on a trajectory that moved a little bit slow and slippery.
Yeah. And
so if you think that this part of cancel culture right now isn't gonna have effects, then I'm gonna suggest that we should have a discussion about that.
Yeah.
About where that could lead.
I remember my second thing.
Yay, Brenda. Oh, number 2.
Along with, Anjanette, I think, along with your comment that what you go into the discussion idea, what your goal of going into the discussion for, I think the other thing is you have to listen. And I think we're so busy having this discussion that someone says something and then our mind starts saying, okay, how do I answer this? How do I answer this?
True.
Instead, you need to actually listen to what they say, take a moment to digest it, and then share what you want to say. Because that is what has helped me to change from flying off the handle, is I actually take a moment and step back and think about what they said and think about what I could say that would not be rude, offensive, or wrong, right? That was what I have a tool I have put in. And like I said, I don't do it all the time because sometimes I still hit the jet button and go fast. But that is what I have done, is I have began to sit back and think about what was said before I give my response or before I jump on them to give my response. And I think that we don't do that. And, in restating things like, okay, so what I'm hearing you say is this, Is that really what you're saying? Okay, so if you're saying that, this is what I have to say about that, right? It's actually trying to understand them that doesn't happen in the discussion.
Well said.
Totally agree with that. You do need to have that listening ear. And I sometimes think that that is the way to combat the problem. Is I am coming to this listening to you, asking questions and having curiosity. Curiosity in this world, I think, actually can help in these situations so much. Just being curious. What are your religious beliefs? I remember in high school, there was a young man in my class who was Muslim. And we ended up sitting next to each other on a bus ride to a field trip. And we actually ended up talking religion. He had actually read his religious texts. I've read mine. And we actually talked points. And we discovered that our religious ideas, that there was a lot of overlap in places. There were some differences, but I came away from that going, one, oh, there are other teenagers who are really religious, because I didn't meet a lot of them where I grew up in California. And I came away having had a discussion. But I don't know if that would actually happen today. Like, I'm not fully convinced that that would have been a peaceful back and forth and just exchange. We were just curious about each other. Where now I feel like when people go to have those discussions, that they're just coming at it as, this is the truth. You don't believe the truth. I need to tell you about it, and you need to accept my truth. And nothing seems to go well when you approach it, like you said, Anjanette, in that kind of space.
Well, because we've come to where we've come, there's actually organizations that now say there are topics you cannot talk about at work.
Well, that's
and
just
one is religion, and one is politics, and another is the LGBT. I'm just saying,
like
because I've been to training classes to begin to start.
Oh, really?
Summer break, and there's a whole list of them now that you cannot talk about at work.
How is that helpful?
Regardless if it is agreed upon by the two of you, because if it's overheard, they can tell people that you were talking about this and it was offensive to them because they overheard it. You weren't talking to them because you overheard it, so you can't talk about it anymore.
That's a form of censorship.
But it's reality, Jen. It's reality right now.
It is just so sad to me, because that is how I feel like growing up, kids learn things. You hear adults talking about them in a civil way back and forth, and you start to question things and ask more questions of your parents' political views or your aunts and uncles because they seem so different. And what were you seeing in society, and what are your views?
They don't want people questioning anymore.
But if you don't question, then how do you come to your own?
I get it, Jen. I'm just saying that is what our society has come to right now.
And that's the danger of this society right now.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's the danger is right. Literally this next upcoming generation has literally never seen healthy, happy, contented adults having a discussion where they disagree, and they can disagree and come to different conclusions, but they walk away being friends. They walk away being amicable. They walk away still see each other as your neighbor. They literally have never seen examples of this, which is why, to an extent, we're seeing such emotional immaturity. Mm-hmm. They've never seen it modeled. It's like being the child of divorced parents, where all your parents did was fight. They've literally never seen a healthy, loving relationship between two adults, right, that where you can have an argument and you can disagree, but then you can come to an agreement, you can apologize, you can make up, and you can get back to a place of peace. Yeah. But that's the danger of not having these discussions, is that we lose emotional maturity to handle things, and we stay stuck in pride.
Yeah, and they don't teach them to resolve conflict.
Right.
Okay, we are not taught how to teach these kids, because I work in the school systems, that we don't teach the kids how to handle conflict and how to work it out. We send them to their separate corners. We punish them both, or don't punish them, and we move on. And we say, you can't talk about that anymore. That is what they do now.
Right.
You know,
eventually
you two can't sit by each other on the bus. You two can't sit by each other in class. You two have to stay away from each other. But we don't teach them how to resolve that conflict and maybe be friends afterwards.
Yeah, so that's gonna really hurt and hinder that generation as well as the future, because I'll say it and I'll be fine saying it if somebody wants to comment about it. But I'm like, seriously, colleges, you have to have a room that when college kids get upset, they have a place to go color in order to like calm themselves and to feel safe and comfortable. Seriously? They're about to have a boss that might not like them, but needs them to do the job that they've been given. What are you going to do about that?
Well, not only that, I think that they need to start doing mediation between the children. They need to sit them both down in the same room with a neutral person that doesn't go to the school. And they need to teach them how to do mediation and teach them how to listen and understand each other. Not agree. I'm not asking them to agree, but they need to learn to listen and understand each other. And then how do you go forward in life being in the same school and having had this problem? We can't teach them to stay away from each other the rest of their life.
Yeah, you can't avoid conflict every time it comes up.
No.
Can't be done. You do actually have to learn how to deal with conflict.
That is what they're doing right now.
Well, and not only to me, because if you actually, and I would suggest anyone go and read Elder Oaks' talk on the topic. He had some really great points and very specific examples. One of the directions that I think it can also go is you then going, oh, I need to give up some of my values or ideas and say, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. No, because I think some people can do that in order to end a conflict, right? They will go ahead and give up some of that. No, it's okay in a conflict for you to stand in your truth and your values as you see them. You do not have to be apologetic about them either.
There doesn't have to be an agreement.
There just doesn't have to be an agreement. There does need to be a space of listening and understanding, and everyone should just know I love to ask questions because I feel like that shows someone you're listening as well as you are just curious about what's going on. How did they come to their conclusions? I love to understand how people come to their conclusions because I come to mine in my own way. And I think if we really start to understand kind of where people are coming from, we can sit there and go, interesting, your life experiences, like you were saying about moms and dads who are arguing, right? If that is your life experience and all you've known, and you come out of it like marriage is stupid, well, why do you feel that way? Well, I come from a divorced family and I blah, blah. And I go, oh, I understand why you believe that now. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that. My parents were married for a long time and this was my experience. So I don't see it that way.
Yeah, we need to stop thinking that you have to come out of a discussion with someone being.
Yeah, I wouldn't be telling anyone that, well, your view is just wrong. That's not what it's like because that was your life experience. So it's okay. We can come away and understand, but you're correct, Myrna. We need that to stop happening. Go ahead, Anjanette, you have something?
Yeah, and along those lines, I had a mentor say once years ago, and it's something that always stuck with me. Which was always assume people's intelligence. And which makes sense because even if somebody is behaving in a way that is wrong, or it's not effective, or it's being self-sabotaging or destructive, there's a reason why they're doing it. Yes. There's a reason why they are engaging in those thoughts and those feelings and those behaviors and those choices. So what's the reason? Mm-hmm. What's the reason why they're making that choice over and over and over again? If you can get to the root of what's happening, then maybe everyone can start asking some better questions of maybe there's a different approach to this. But the moment, again, you label somebody, you say like, well, they don't believe what I believe. They're stupid. They're an idiot. Like then again, you've lost all capacity to logically reason and to be curious and to find something that actually could work.
Right. Right. It just, along the lines of, avoiding conflict, I think when we avoid conflict, we lose the opportunities to grow. Because you grow when you see someone else's viewpoint and determine whether you personally want to adopt that viewpoint or whether your viewpoint still is valid for you. There's a growth that happens when you do that. So if you go through your life avoiding conflict and never, when you have a fight with, I don't know, your friend or your sister or whatever, if you don't go to them and try and work it out, no one's grown. You're both still in the same place you were before. And I think coming together and learning and growing, whether you're right or whether they're right or whether no one's right, and you just walk away with your own opinions, there is a growth that happens because either you solidify what you believe or you change and believe what they believe, or you realize there's two options to the same thing, right? Life's not black and white at that point. And I think there's a growth when you finally realize life is not black and white, because it's not.
Well, the sad thing about these discussions is if you yourself, regardless of what the other person or the other party is saying, if you yourself don't walk into those conversations with that sense of curiosity and a sense of genuine humility, then you've lost all opportunity for you to learn something new. You've lost all opportunity for you to grow into something. You can't control what the other person's going to do. No. But if you show up to the conversation like that, you've already shot yourself in the foot.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, and to your point, Myrna, I think that, like you're saying with having a discussion with a sister or a family or a friend or any of that, yes, you would like to come out with growth. And if you don't actually work at resolving, what does actually happen is a wedge gets put there, very tiny. And then any time that topic or situation comes up, I feel like a hammer goes down and it just wedges more and more and more. And then resentment builds. And then resentment is all about the anger and frustration. That's all about contention.
Yeah, and also if they ignore it, it just grows too. Even if you ignore it, it just grows.
So the real way to get through it is by working it out. And I'm not saying that it's easy or not, but and I love the discussion you're having on this, that we're having on this. But I want to get in here for a second, the ending of this whole talk by Elder Oaks. Because he says, as difficult as it is to live in the turmoil surrounding us, our Savior's command to love one another as he loves us is probably our greatest challenge. I pray that we may understand this and seek to live it in all of our relationships and activities.
Yeah,
I agree. It is our greatest challenge. That commandment to love thy neighbor as thyself. But as Christ talks more, it's also about loving your enemy, the guy who is diametrically opposed to you. How can we show that love? By lowering that pride for a moment, like you said, Anjanette, and having humility, and being willing to listen, even though you believe in the moment that everything he's going to say you're going to disagree with, still take the opportunity to sit there and maybe have that discussion, and you will learn and grow and come out ahead in life because of it. Because if you can sit and have that discussion, then in interpersonal relationships with spouses, with children, with work situations, you'll just be better at that conflict resolution arena. And I wish, and my hope and prayer is that society, because of individuals taking the opportunity, society will grow and become better, especially in our own community, as you guys have observed in the LDS community.
Yeah, and loving someone, as the Savior has asked us to do, doesn't mean we have to agree with them. Doesn't mean we have to tell them they're right. Doesn't mean we have to say, oh yeah, it's okay. You can go kill somebody. It's all good. Right?
No, that's really
yeah. We don't have to agree with them.
Right.
But we just have to love them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference. And that is one thing that, at least in the LGBTQ community, needs to change. We need to love them. That doesn't mean we have to say that what you're doing is right. We need to separate those two things. Condoning and loving. They're two separate things. Love has no master. It does not have to agree with anybody. It just exists and is there. And that is how you love someone. You just love them because they are a child of God and they exist and they are standing in front of you or in your life some way. That is to love them. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them or condone what they're doing or anything. You can just love them with never doing that.
Or let go of your own beliefs in that. You can just love them. Mm-hmm. Any other words on the topic, Anjanette?
I think the only thing I would love to leave people with is the serenity prayer. Which is, I think everybody should memorize. Oh God, give me the serenity to accept what cannot be changed, the courage to change what can be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Amen. Someone really came up with a beautiful one when they came up with that serenity prayer. Okay, guys, thank you so much for having this discussion on this topic today. I thought, wow. I'm hoping that anyone listening, please comment. Please tell us your stories, ideas. When has it worked? Maybe when has it not worked? Comment down below. Go to our Facebook page. We'd really like any type of engagement here, because we'd like to know really what do you think about this topic. And as always, keep fighting for truth in these latter days. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.
Bye. Bye.